Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is President Sarah Palmer. Thank you for joining us. We have two meetings. This is a little unusual today. So we have two meetings going to be going on. We'll start with the regular meeting and then almost immediately cut into a special meeting. So I'll just cue us in for that one. And then I will call the regular meeting to order. We can begin with the roll call. I want to start off first off saying that we have three remote sites going on. We've got Marty Millibar coming in from Arkansas. We have Adnan Anakdawi coming in from Mojave, and then Barbara Keegan for Tony Estramera is coming in from Valley Water headquarters. So those are our remote sites, and we do have the rest of us here. So this is good. Okay, so I'd like to call the meeting to order, and let's start with the roll call, please.
Sadly, good afternoon, directors. President Palmer.
Here.
Director Millibar.
Here.
Director Martin.
Here.
Director Luna.
Present.
Director Estramera. Director Chang.
Here.
Director Anapdawi.
Here.
I do want to acknowledge that alternate Director Keegan will be subbing in for Director Estramera today. And I believe she is here.
Yes, I'm present offline.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that online we have alternate Director Weed,
Thank you.
alternate Director LaFave, alternate Director Lamoureux, and in the room we have alternate Director Bob Tincher. Oh, and we also have Dan Fleury online. Thank you.
So would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go at this point, public comment. Let us at this point, let's see, should we do let's go right into, at this point, let's go into the special meeting. Okay, then I am calling the special board meeting to a close and going back to our regular board meeting. And we are now, let me get through my various different pieces of paper here. And I want to make sure I'm staying on the right agenda. There it is, the regular meeting. Okay, we're now on item 4. Which is, we did public comment. So again, do we have any public comment for the regular meeting?
President Palmer, no public comment requests.
Okay, great. Then let's move on to item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes for May 18th, 2023. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion. Millibar.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Second, Anapdawi.
Anapdawi, thank you. Second. Okay, so let us bring it to a vote.
President Palmer.
Aye.
Director Millibar.
Aye.
Director Martin.
I abstain. I didn't attend the meeting.
Director Luna.
Aye.
Alternate Director Keegan.
Also abstaining.
Director Chang.
Aye.
And Director Anapdawi.
Yes.
Have been approved. There we go. Okay, moving on to item 6 with our various discussion items. First off, I will say we are going to pull 6D. That is the adopt resolution approving the amended procurement policy. We will revisit this one, I believe, in August. And so we're just pulling that from the agenda right now. So we still have A, B, C, E, and F. So let's get into the June DCA monthly report, please.
Thank you, President Palmer. Good afternoon, directors. Claudia, if we could please proceed to section 1, summary of work. I'll highlight just a couple of ongoing items. So first, in terms of the program management administration tasks, we have been on the ramp up as we are every year, preparing to wrap up the current fiscal year and prepare new task orders for next fiscal year, which will be coming starting July 1. So administration activities and program management activities have, that's been a big focus of that group, getting ready for that transition. In terms of the engineering program, we continue to provide our primary support to DWR, responding to requests for clarification, additional information regarding any public comments made on the draft EIR or other supporting help that we can provide to DWR associated with all the engineering quantities and concept designs that the DCA has developed. The fieldwork program is ongoing. We do have an active program right now. They are in the process of wrapping up some work this week that's been conducted along the Caltrans right-of-way, Highway 160, on top of the federal project levy in the vicinity of the intakes. That work is preparing to wrap up this week. They've also got a couple of other pieces of equipment distributed throughout the Delta, continuing with their mission of collecting Delta-wide data, helping support DWR's evaluation of alternatives. The fieldwork is going to continue through this year, through this calendar year. And so when we get to the discussion of next year's fiscal year budget, I'll make sure and touch on and highlight the assumptions that have been built into the fieldwork program for next fiscal year. It is anticipated we have a spring program currently active, a summer field program intended, and then a fall program. And that would wrap up the work being performed under the initial study mitigated negative declaration. Okay, Claudia, if we could jump now to the budget summary, please. Section 3. So just as a reminder, we have an approved budget for the current fiscal year of 31.16 million. We have committed a total of 28.57 million. The remainder of that non-committed fund still rests within the executive office under unallocated reserves. At this point, we are forecasting an estimate at completion of just over 27 million. So we're starting to identify an underrun on the order of 4 million or just over $4 million. I do expect at the end of the day, when we close the books for the current fiscal year, that underrun will continue to grow. That's just kind of the nature of the cycle we run with these annual fiscal cycles. At the end of each year, whatever funds have not been expended by the contractors are pulled back and put back into the bank essentially. Okay, so Claudia, let's go now to the last slide, the schedule. I just wanted to touch on the schedule. This is our fiscal year plan and schedule. A couple of items to point out here. I first wanted to touch on what we referred to as project definition reports. I believe the last time we met, we were identifying a level of completion far below what we anticipated at the initial planning stages of the fiscal year, and we were flagging a status commensurate with that. We did re-baseline our project. This involved pulling funds back that were allocated for that effort, putting those funds into unallocated reserve. And in doing so, we rescoped the effort. And so essentially that task is now a minimal effort that we're 100% on track with. So by rebaselining and pulling those funds back into the unallocated reserve account, we cleared the issue associated with the performance on that particular item. This was an intentional lack of progress on the project definition reports. It's something that we conceived of in this time last year, that we would like to start conceptualizing some of the procurement documents for the next phase. We did think about and develop a template for these project definition reports, but we're deferring the remainder of that activity to actually start creating packages and so forth until DWR makes a decision on the project and we know which way we're going. So that is my summary of the monthly report. I'll stop now to see if there's any questions.
Okay, do we have questions from the board?
Quick one, on the field exploration program, when do you foresee it going all the way through 2024, or where do you see?
So the work that we're doing now is to support DWR's evaluation of alternatives. So essentially when DWR concludes the environmental analysis associated with the EIR, so does the field work that's being performed in support of that activity. So we're anticipating that the work will be done for the rest of this calendar year, but that it would complete at the end of calendar year 23.
So basically December, end of December, basically.
I expect will likely be done, but you never know. It'll be right in that window. We'll be wrapping things up in the fall.
Thanks, President Palmer. So Graham, maybe just one quick question for you. So I appreciate the, the simple way that you can depict the progress on this. It's really great. So I think you already talked about the, 20% progress or completion on the field exploration. Does the laboratory analysis, the 68% kind of, is that synced up with that as well? And
So yes, good question. The reality is we have the spring program ongoing, which we are making rapid progress on, and we'll be done with the field work portion of the program by the end of this fiscal year. So we're really approaching it, we're coming up on it here pretty quick. But the laboratory analysis and associated documentation of all that work is going to have to be performed next fiscal year. And so although we did fund it fully, in the current fiscal year, FY 22-23, we'll be coming back to the board to seek authorization to roll that scope and budget over to next year. But that'll be after we deal with the current proposed budget for next fiscal year. It would just be on top of that proposed budget.
That's not part of our underrun.
That is not, no, that's not part of the, wait, hang on, let me think for a second. Can you go back, please, to that slide, Claudia, to the table? I want to make sure I just don't. So President Palmer, the reality is that the funds have been committed. And the EAC that's shown here is reflecting full spend of that money. So it's not part of the underrun.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Comments? Yes.
Thank you, President Palmer. Are we continuing to get the access we need to do the completion of this year's program? And are we anticipating any issues going forward on access?
I would call that a work in progress. We continue to work very actively with landowners and negotiating temporary entry permits to perform this work where needed. It has transitioned at points to a court-ordered entry process. So we still continue with that process. It's ongoing, and it's going to continue to be ongoing for the rest of the year, really supporting the work that we're doing. But it's been a process we've been working through, and I expect it to continue on in the same manner.
About our Zoom board members, do we have any questions? No? Okay, and then comments? Nope, all right. Then let us move on to, let's see, the monthly report information only. Then we've got our fiscal year budget item 6B.
President Palmer, we have a presentation to support this item. So Claudia, if we could go to the next slide, please. So this is an overview of the presentation I'm going to walk through. First, we will discuss the work breakdown structure of the DCA to put the budget into context in terms of how we allocate funds and to what tasks and are distributed within our eBuilder platform. Then we will go through the functional areas based on that work breakdown structure and review the proposed budget for next fiscal year. We've also got a summary in a different form showing the proposed budget broken down by major vendors. And then lastly, there's a budget summary roll-up that summarizes the budget that we will go through. Included in your packet, there's some detailed presentations of the budget as well, kind of in the back end of your packet, but they're not part of the presentation. So go to the next slide, please. So first, just to summarize the work breakdown structure, this is developed to cover all of the program phases of the work that we're doing within the project. The program management office, the PMO, is a cross-organizational structure that we expect to continue throughout all phases of the program. You can see that on the right, graphically depicted in sort of the purple shaded areas, and we're going to go through what is included in the program management office. The current engineering work is being performed under what we refer to as the program initiation phase. This is the conceptual work that's been done to support the environmental planning. Future phases are anticipated to be the program execution. So that's the delivery of all the individual projects, and then program closeout. Once the work is done, it's closeout of all the financial and record documents, et cetera, and dissolution of the DCA. Next slide, please. So first, starting with the program management office, we have a total of 10 budget categories within the PMO. They include the executive office, community engagement, program controls, administration, procurement and contract administration, property, permitting management, health and safety, quality management, sustainability. Next slide, please. So focusing on the executive office, you can see the subtasks that are included within the executive office. Also included within the executive office is the undefined allowance. You can see identified there as $2 million. So this is where we include all of the executive office functions and the budgets associated with these tasks. Next slide, please. Community engagement. So this includes all the outreach activities that the DCA performs with stakeholders, as well as supporting DWR with outreach efforts, managing all of our social media outlets, website content. All of this is included with community engagement. Next slide, please. Our program controls group. So this includes the management of the program controls, the formal risk management program, which we have not enlisted funds or not dedicated funds towards, cost management, schedule, document management, program governance, all included within the program controls element of the WBS. Next slide. The administration group. So this includes management of administration, our facilities, so rent, utilities, supplies, furniture, all of our IT infrastructure, hardware, software services. Next slide. Procurement and administration services. So this is the group responsible for all procurement activities, any goods or services requested through RFPs or queues, contract negotiations, insurance. You can imagine the activities associated here. We do anticipate a few procurements next fiscal year. We'll continue to update the board as we begin to roll those out. Next slide, please. Property and permitting management. So this is related to the temporary entry permits and the property managers in the field who are negotiating those temporary entry permits. This also includes the permitting management tasks. In reality, these are the permit liaisons that the DCA employs to help coordinate our activities with DWR's permitting activities. Next slide. Additional functions within the program management office include health and safety, quality management, as well as sustainability. And I'm happy to also report that on the agenda in a few items is an update from our sustainability manager on a proposed sustainability policy for the DCA. Next slide, please. So now we're going to shift over into the program initiation phase. So this is where the current engineering and fieldwork functions are being performed. Next slide. So first, the engineering group. This is the group responsible for all of the technical studies, alternative analyses, conceptual level design work. This is all work supporting DWR's evaluation of alternatives and supporting the environmental planning process. I will note that once the environmental planning process is complete, the engineering activities will transition to an execution phase, and there will be a new set of activities developed within the work breakdown structure to support those capital projects. The total budget assigned to the engineering task is 15.6 million. Now I will identify, sorry, go back, Claudia. You see the project definition reports identified there. That's really a placeholder. The vast majority of that fund would be sitting and waiting for DWR's decisions about the projects and about the project. And if moving forward, task orders would be amended to include that scope of work. Next slide, please. The fieldwork tasks. So here we have a budget. This is a bottoms up estimate this fiscal year. We have a very accurate estimate of the work we'd like to perform this fiscal year. So we were able to develop a bottoms up estimate for the work to be performed. In total, we have an estimate of about 7.6 million. This covers the fieldwork program to begin in the summer, as well as the fall programs, but does not account for the money that will be coming back to discuss at the board for continuation and finishing up the documentation and laboratory work for the spring program. Next slide, please. So now shifting over to budget by vendor, we have our largest contract amount with the engineering program to Jacobs. You can see those identified in descending order down to our smallest amount of what we would call the major contract values, Bender Rosenthal, which assists us in our right-of-way services. That's actually where we get our field coordinator for all the field work is through Bender Rosenthal. So the group of contracts that you see here represent those major vendors, major and important vendors. So the budget as a summary for the next fiscal year 23-24 is a total of 39.9, I will say 96. Sorry, we had a couple of minor adjustments compared there, but it would be $39,955,004. Next slide. And I will pause for questions.
Yep, questions from the board? Yes, Robert.
Thanks, President Palmer. Graham, thank you again for kind of summarizing, what could be a very complicated process. My question is actually pretty basic. So on the, I probably should know this, but back on slide number 13, the project definition reports, can you give me an example of what that might be?
Yes, so we have the conceptual engineering work that's been performed to date that's documented in the engineering project reports, and that's for all alternatives being evaluated within the EIR. If and when there is a project that moves forward, the engineering team is going to need to take the relevant information, encapsulate it into an engineering report specific for a procurement, and that would be a basis for procuring the next phase of work associated with design of that feature. So it's sort of like a basis of design report, but it's really focused on specific features, and it may be a cluster of features, or it may be an individual, and that's going to depend on some of the contract packaging considerations that we still need to bring into this.
Just for my understanding, related to under program controls for the schedule management,
Yes,
it jumped from 2 to 1.3. Can you let me know what that is?
sure.
Why that is?
Yeah, can we go back to that slide, Claudia? This would be under the PMO. And are you referring, Director Luna?
From
to-
last year's.
Oh, from last year.
Yeah, from last year's budget, which was
absolutely.
200 and now it's 1.3.
Yeah, we have dedicated additional resources. We've been working on a complete schedule for the work, including the current phase, but evaluating scenarios and alternatives through the design, construction, and commissioning phase. So it's just really been a much more dedicated effort with full-time resources to help develop that tool.
It's good to know. Yeah.
Yes.
In case someone else asks, I can answer that. And then the jump from 10 million last year for Jacobs to 16. Can you talk a little bit about what you expect out of that 6 million, extra 6 million this year?
Yep, sure can. A lot of that frankly will come if and when DWR makes a decision to proceed with the project. I think in reality, the next 6 months is going to look very much like the past 6 months. The effort that we've assigned for that is on the order of a similar, it's very similar in scale. But if and when there is a project that moves forward, we will be adding additional effort associated with the engineering, largely with those project definition reports, as well as some additional studies and work that would come online, but it really needs to wait until DWR makes a decision about the program. So the increase is largely associated with that period in the second half of the fiscal year. And at this point, we won't be authorizing all of it. So we'll be holding back, waiting this. Yes, exactly.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Hey, President Palmer, I have a question for Graham, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. Graham, could you describe your expectations for the support DCA will have or be providing on the permitting, related to change of point of diversion, the delta consistency? Is that where some of that shows up in the PMO?
So the permit support activities, right now, a lot of that shows up still under, actually, don't scroll up, Claudia, stay down there. Largely now the effort is focused on CEQA. So stop right there. There we go. So CEQA engineering support is the location where a lot of that activity has historically been. And as we move forward, Director Anaptawi will be migrating some of these WBS titles and efforts to continue the permitting support, but it will largely live within the engineering activities. That's where our support generally lies. In addition, we have the liaison work, which is up in the PMO, and that's just helping to connect the dots between the work that we do and the work that DWR is doing. A lot of times a liaison is needed to help translate between the two activities and ensure that we're speaking the same language. I just want to pause and see, Carrie, is there anything that you want to add on this?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Palmer. Graham, I think you've already answered some of these. I think the questions have already come up because this, the budget straddles what we believe to be the completion of the environmental effort and moving forward into the next phase. You've already discussed that. And we're confident that we're going to get to that point. And so the budget is built to support those efforts going forward, I trust.
That is correct. It's built to support continuation of efforts in this planning and permitting phase. And yes, so you're correct. It's built to support that.
Thank you.
Okay, now do we have anybody else on Zoom with any questions? No? Okay, then let me see. Do we have any public comment on this?
President Palmer, we have not had any requests come through, but I do see that our treasurer Catano has a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Graham, I should know this, but just in case. So this is only running through July 2024, correct?
This budget will take us through June, end of June.
June 2024.
Yep.
Okay, so as we just as a note, when do we start talking about your next, because that's only a year from today. So is there any thinking about at this point of next steps? And I only ask this question, and I shouldn't probably ask this question, because I'm going into my new budget and I have to start thinking about how we fund you. So to the extent that that discussion comes, will be really critical, at least for Med to know. I want to say October, November. Just
Yeah, I
FYI.
appreciate, okay, I appreciate that question, Catano. And so this budget only covers the next fiscal year. We're currently funded through the end of calendar year 2024. I think we, again, we need to allow for completion of the CEQA process and DWR's opportunity to make a decision about the future of the project. And then I think, yes, you're right. There is a lot of additional thinking, coordination, planning for the next phases that will need to happen. But I think for the moment, we're focused on the next fiscal year and completion of this phase of work.
So basically, once DWR makes their decision, then we got to hit the ground running, and Katana, then you'll have your calendar full. Okay, and no public comment and no other questions. Okay, then this is something to be approved by minute order. Do we have an approval?
I'll move approval of or adoption of the FY 23-24 budget.
Second, Millibar.
Okay, so Martin and Millibar, let us then go ahead and bring this to a roll vote.
Gladly. President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Alternate Director Keegan,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent.
Great. Okay, then moving on, we are now on to 6C, which is for approving the sustainability policy.
Palmer, I would first like to introduce Ariel Vecchio. And Ariel is our sustainability manager at the DCA and has had a very strong hand in developing this policy. So I'm going to turn this over to Ariel.
Thank you, everybody. You can go to the next slide. So I'm here today to present the sustainability policy, which is our commitment to embed sustainability principles into the program all the way from operations through construction. And so I will go over with you its general purpose, its goals, and the implementation approach. This is one component of meeting the overall mission of this construction project, and the purpose of the sustainability policy itself is therefore to establish the high-level sustainability goals, as well as identify the supporting processes and procedures that would be required to really drive successful implementation of sustainability practices throughout this program. So in balance with other goals of the program, we really want to consider a range of factors that would allow us to maximize our opportunities to deliver this project in a sustainable fashion. Because we're early in program, our first step is to kind of develop the programmatic and project-specific sustainability management plans, which will build on this policy and its goals to define the objectives and strategies as well as performance metrics for the overall program operation, as well as the actual design and construction aspects of the program. And we will be conducting those activities in coordination with all of our regulatory environmental commitments. So we seek to consider strategies to reduce energy and water consumption, conserve natural resources, and also minimize waste generation. And we believe it's important to also understand, therefore, the impacts of the supply chain and our project implementation choices. And these goals also cover social aspects, and we seek to prioritize health and safety for all DCA staff, subcontractors, and the public. We also want to consider the community context of which we are working, as well as support the local economy. And to make sure that we are transparent and are actually reviewing our success along the way, we will be reviewing and reporting on sustainability activities on a regular basis. And because we are early in program implementation, we also set out and we dealt an approach for sustainability implementation, which is basically a 3-tiered cascading process, with increasing levels of detail in each component. So starting with the sustainability policy, which we are reviewing today, we'll follow that with a programmatic sustainability plan, which will really articulate the goals and objectives and strategies for the overall program, as well as think through what that means for construction and design. Those aspects will be coordinated with the PMP as well as the other program plans, and also will be consistent with our environmental review and environmental commitments. Basically, that element really articulates what we need to do at a program level, but we also want to make sure that it's very clear what projects need to do as they're actually going through implementation and really delivering projects. So it's our goal that the programmatic sustainability plan would also guide the contents of the project-specific sustainability plans, which we anticipate would be managed and completed by the actual project delivery teams. And those plans would also include specific metrics and targets, as well as guidance on reporting, so that everything that is done at a very detailed level can roll up back and be reported along the way to various audiences, so we understand how we're doing throughout the program. Therefore, it is our staff recommendation that the board adopt this by resolution to affirm the goals for sustainability.
Now, okay, do we have any comments or questions? We should probably start with questions from the board.
Thank you, President Palmer. Appreciate the conversation and the introduction of this particular topic. I know sustainability is a pretty big feature in large, not just this project, but a lot of construction projects, most construction projects. So maybe a couple of requests. I think one is maybe a future date, I don't know if I've actually met Ms. Vecchio before and know her background, but might be a good idea to include her, introduction at a future date. Just a suggestion. I know we're not at that point in the agenda yet, President Palmer, but just, putting that out there. But as I'm kind of going through the list of goals, and, these are simply goals, but I think these are very important. Maybe at a future date, have a little bit more in-depth discussion on how we, are thinking about, some of the tangible aspects as we kind of go forward, because the devil is sort of in details. And I know we don't have time today, but obviously the board is being asked to consider policies. But anyways, I think these are all really good. Thank you.
Yes, Director
Just,
Luna.
I appreciate this as well, and I appreciate that it's quoted as evolving, because, things evolve. And so just a comment that when I read the first sentence under sustainability policy, it says that DCA commits to embedding sustainability principles. And so I was sort of looking for maybe a list of those principles but what I'm understanding is that the principles are the goals, right? Is that it? Or how do you see it? Because sometimes I see the goals different from our principles, which are core values, how it leads to the goals.
I think we wanted to make sure that the overall statement was that we are committed to sustainability. I think in this sense, we were yeah, maybe bridging that gap in that Venn diagram of principles and goals, right? Trying to be cognizant that there are many things that are involved in sustainability, as you're saying, especially when you think through really the devil in the details of like, what are your choices? How are you prioritizing them and how are you weighing them? So these were intended to be the overall arching kind of principles and goals. And then we wanted to clarify that in the actual development of the program plan, we can articulate with a lot more specificity, sub goals to these, and then we'll lay out what some objectives and strategies are more specifically.
That'll get us to the goals. Yeah. So my only comment is just that maybe it's just sustainability goals and we leave it at that rather than, I don't know, it left me looking for the principles.
We were using them more interchangeably, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, so you really want to look at your principles and then have programmatic goals that kind of come out of the principles then, is that correct?
Exactly, and that is what the sustainability plan is intended to do, so that by category, we're able to really break that down. What does that mean for each of our broader categories and principles, and then link that to our environmental reviews that is consistent, and that we're able to actually kind of keep track on each of those sub items as we're moving forward at a program level, but also very much thinking through how we're actually going to deliver these projects.
This is more a high level.
Yes, exactly.
Not really specific, but you will get into the specifics as we get on to various different programs. Okay, yes.
Thank you,
Director
President
Martin.
Palmer. Thank you for your report. Obviously, I believe it's a comprehensive and worthy effort to put this together, and but I do see at the bottom of the screen, I'm looking at the sustainability goals that we'll be reviewing and reporting on sustainability activities on a regular basis. And then I've tried to marry that somewhat to the bar chart I saw on the plan going forward, and that will this not begin until an end of permitting, or when will we start hearing reports on sustainability quote unquote activities?
Yes, I would say we can definitely discuss if you would like previews or progress on developing the sustainability plan itself. But the idea was that our next phase would be to dive into a more substantial sustainability plan. And then when those are articulated, because that plan will articulate the objectives, that therefore after that is complete, we can start reporting on those specific objectives.
Great.
So just to clarify, then you're really saying that a lot of this in terms of the more specifics will start maybe in December. Is that correct?
That's correct, but the actual schedule, we plan to develop the work plan and the actual schedule for developing that plan, the sustainability plan, in coordination with the status and the timing of environmental review. So it could be December, but I think we wanted to just make sure that we are aligned. But yes, it would be at least, a year until the sustainability plan is complete, and then we will start reporting on what is identified in that plan.
Okay, so once we have the identification of a plan, then we can really delve into this much more deeply. Is that it? Okay, how about on Zoom? Do we have?
Alternate Director Keegan, who has her hand up.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair. I would like to first thank staff and in particular, Ms. Vecchio, for coming forward with this. I think it's consistent with the aspirations and interests that we've heard from stakeholders as we've moved forward with the development of the project. I will say one possible suggestion is when we look at the sustainability goals and goal number 5, where we say prioritize health and safety for all DCA staff, subcontractors, and the public. From my perspective, public projects, the focus always needs to be on service to the public. So I would rather put the public up front rather than at the end of that sustainability goal, if that would be possible. Thank you.
okay. Yeah, I can see these all as kind of being important, but maybe putting that prioritization as bullet 1 would be really a nice step.
And just to clarify, in that sense, these goals are currently, listed in order because we need to write them down, but they aren't numbered per se, because that is a detail that we would work out in the sustainability plan of what is the highest priority, is there weighting, how is that weighted, and how do you address the range of factors that we want to be aware
So,
of.
so this doesn't necessarily denote any weighting of importance on these. Okay.
Through the
President
chair.
Palmer,
if I could-
I think just Director Keegan, it wasn't to move the bullet up. And I think you clarified, but it was just to put public before you put DCA staff within the sentence. Is
I
that
see,
what
I
heard?
see.
That is what I said. I wasn't indicating to change the order of it, but just to prioritize. As always, we need to put the public health and safety needs to be important, as we all
Yes,
know.
Good point.
Thank you.
Good point.
President Palmer, I have just a quick comment. So I don't know how to raise my hand here on the,
Oh, sure. Director Abdali, go ahead.
thanks. First, Ms. Vecchio, this is great. I mean, I think that getting ahead of this and starting with the policy, moving into the plans, as opposed to waiting for procurement and then deciding maybe you want to do something. This is kind of good to set this up early, so I appreciate the work. And I'd be very curious to see, especially with kind of the second to last bullet here, you know, a lot of this project gets, and a lot of the work that's being done is about avoiding, you know, impacts to local communities but kind of the other side with a construction project like this, you know, what it means for jobs and supporting the local economy, I think is kind of can be a real success story. And I'd be curious to see how you plan to implement this at the procurement level. So I'm looking forward to those. And maybe just I wanted to offer a little bit of a difference of opinion on necessarily the ordering of the health and safety. I think all of these, in terms of prioritizing health and safety for everyone involved, including public, including staff, I mean, they're all equally important. And I don't necessarily want to signal a prioritization of order here. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but I don't necessarily see a specific order of importance here. So I just wanted to give you another perspective there, but otherwise really appreciate the report and happy to support this.
Thank you, Director Naftali. Anyone else? Okay, now, do we have any comment from?
President Palmer, sorry.
President Palmer, we've been sort of trying to catch the comments and edits as they've gone through. Would you like us to restate those for the board? You know, one option for you today would be to incorporate these amendments in your approval.
Oh, sure, why not? Let's
The
do it.
first edit we heard was to just to avoid any confusion, replace the word principles with goals. So it's clear that in term is intended to be used the same consistently through the policy. And then the second, and I think we heard some discussion about potentially modifying the bullet point, which currently reads prioritize health and safety for all DCA staff, subcontractors, and the public. And I think my likely poor attempt at trying to combine the comments would be something that reads prioritize health and safety for everyone, including the public, DCA staff, and subcontractors.
I like that. Let's do that. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay, then do we have any public comment?
President Palmer, we do not have any comments requests.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve? Oh,
No. I'll do this.
just do it, guys.
Yield to Robert. Okay, well, I guess in that case, I'll make the motion.
Okay, and do
Thank
we
you.
have a second?
I will second.
Okay, Director Martin, okay, Director Chang and Director Martin. Let's bring this to a roll vote then.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Alternate Director Keegan,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Did I forget somebody? Director Martin, no, did I?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Director Martin.
Lightly.
Aye again.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Okay, now we have pulled item D and we will address that in our August meeting. So let's now get to item E, which is adopt a resolution for approving the investment policy. Let's continue on with that.
Thank you, and if you can pull that up, thank you.
One moment, Catano.
Uh, And so good afternoon, everybody. Katano Kasaine and your treasurer. So this time around, we have our investment policy for fiscal year 23-24. And as required by section 53-600 of California Government Code, we are to, the board must approve investment policy, investment funds and authority for, and delegate the authority to the treasurer for a 1-year period. We are bringing you that just specifically for that reason, because we do not have any changes this time. Next slide, please. So we do not have any specific changes. You might see a few just edits to this page or glossary page, but we don't have key changes. So next page. So at this time, we're really just asking as the law requires to approve the statement of investment policy for fiscal year 2023-24 and delegate the authority to treasurer to invest DCA's funds for fiscal year 23-24. Again, this is, we do this because eventually, hopefully we'll have a lot of money to invest, and this will become really important because then we use the investment policy as a guide on how we invest. We have very little money right now, and it sits in a money market as we transact. Money comes in, money goes out, but the investment policy really is for us to be able to keep, as soon as if we ever issue debt and we have a lot of bond funds, then this will be a guide. So we're seeking for your authorization to approve this for another year period. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Catano. Let's go to the Zoom folks first. Do you guys have any questions for our treasurer? No? Okay, how about the folks here? Anybody have any questions or even comments at this point? None? Okay. Okay, and no public comment either? Okay, great. Then do we have a motion?
Annette Dowie will motion.
Oh, okay. Who was
Second.
that? Annette Dowie motion and Director Luna second. Okay, let's bring it to a vote then.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Alternate Director Keegan,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Okay, great. Fine, then let us move on to item 6F, which is to approve the second amendment, the second amendment to the VMA Communication Inc. Agreement for professional services to provide communications support services.
Thank you, President Palmer. We have a change here. We're requesting board authorization to the VMA communications contract. VMA is our public relations communications firm that we work very closely with. We have a number of administrative changes that are being proposed in the amendment. We do have also an increase in the not to exceed amount of the contract. This is to really ensure that we're able to adequately fund the activities through the end of the contract term, which is October 2024. So we have the next fiscal year to get through and then a little bit of the following fiscal year. I want to also acknowledge that Valerie Martinez of VMA is our communications manager for the DCA. So that recognition is also going to require a bit more funding than we've previously provided to VMA. So in recognition of that, we need to increase the not to exceed amount to make sure that there's sufficient
Worth it.
funds.
She's worth it. Okay, all right. Then what we've got is, do we have any other presentation on this? Nope, that's it. Do we have comments from, let's look at the Zoom room first. Comments or questions? No? How about the room here?
Just one quick one. Do we, are we confident? This is reflective of what's in the budget we just adopted. That's correct, right?
That is correct, Director Martin.
Okay, good point. All right, then comment? Yes, Director Chen.
Thank you, President Palmer. Just a quick question. So this is amending, the total amount as well as kind of extending the contract. And maybe I missed it, but the fee schedule, were there any changes to it? I know we changed the placement of fees, the fee schedule looks like in the agreement itself, but were there any changes to the, hourly rates, et cetera?
I'm going to phone a friend for a second.
Sorry.
Director Chang, there were some changes to a rate, being that previously the communications manager was on loan to us from Met. Now that we've acquired Valerie, we negotiated a rate, so that is going to be included in the task order that is going to be approved now that our budget is adopted, will be in that task order for next year.
Oh,
Did that
sorry.
answer your question?
Yeah, I will add to that, Claudia, sorry. So item 2, Director Chang, I mean, it has been a practice more recently in our contracts to try and include fee schedules in the task orders and not the master contract, so that every time there's a tweak in a rate somewhere, we don't have to go through and re-amend the master contract again. So pulling the rate schedule out of the agreement and it will be included in the task order is also part of the plan. But you're right, there's a new rate that needed to be developed for the role of communications manager within the contract. And then in general, we're going to pull the fee schedule out of the master contract.
And I will also add that this particular contract is a unit cost contract. So those rates have not, they've been in line with the current market rate as far as the COI, and then just a slight rate increase for inflation purposes to capture that.
I'm going to support this and add that more than ever in the project, the communications is going to be key. So yes, absolutely. And I'll move when you're ready.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, Director Chang. I want to give everybody a chance. Who's seconding? Who's seconding? Director Chang, you got it. You got it. Okay. You got to speak up here. Okay, then do we have any public comment?
President Palmer, we do not have any requests.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I've worked with Valerie before with the Stakeholders Engagement Committee, and she is amazing. And I think we'll all come to realize the value of what she has to offer us in terms of her qualities and abilities. So thank you so much. Then let us bring it to am I forgetting something? No? Okay. I can hear you. Just go a little closer to it, maybe.
I also just want to add to the board that, or to my comment, that Valerie and her team are aligning with DWR's communications manager. So that way, we are working collectively as a cohesive team to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel on things, and that we are truly aligning with the mission and the vision of this program, as well as how we tailor our communications.
So we're not working to cross purposes, and we are streamlining.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Then let us bring it to a vote.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Alternate Director Keegan,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, now we are on item G, 6G, which is discussing, this is for information only. We're going to be talking about the meeting cadence, if we should continue as we are, if we should change it, what should we do? Did you want to take this?
I will start it out, President Palmer. Based on the general meeting load that we've been experiencing over the last year, it seems like the cadence has worked well. So it is staff's recommendation that we maintain the current cadence, meeting every other month, and then stacking up with a few additional meetings in the spring as we approach the end of the budget cycle. Of course, we're always able to add additional meetings at the board's request. but didn't want to presume the board's decision here, but we did develop a proposed calendar, so it's in your board packet. This includes the meetings that we've tentatively laid out for the next fiscal year. This is something that we certainly can evolve and work on and iterate with, but it's just a kind of a heads up what we're thinking in terms of the meeting schedule, incorporating the cadence that we are recommending for the next year.
Great. My personal feeling is that I do believe that we have basically done it on an every other, and then we did have a couple times when we met every month because things were picking up a little bit. And we may in the future find that hopefully things will pick up, but right now this bi-monthly seemed to be working well. I think any less than that in terms of meeting, we don't really keep ourselves and our constituency in terms of, hey, we're here, we're still working, and this is ongoing. And so my opinion is that we need to at least meet bi-monthly. So any other comments here? Okay, anything from the Zoom room?
In agreement.
Okay, then,
I would, just as a favor, we could populate the calendar invites for the next fiscal year. It's very helpful to have it there, so it doesn't. So thank you for doing that for this past, and encourage you to do it again as soon as possible. So
yeah, I love having
lots
those
of-
little reminders myself. I need them. Right.
Very good point. And we'll do that. And I just also want to flag for you that we did make an adjustment to the December meeting. The third Thursday of the month would have fallen on December 21st, which is getting pretty close to the holidays. So we have tentatively pulled that forward 1 week to December 14th, but that is of course at the board's discretion.
That sounds good to me. I mean, I agree that we shouldn't be getting, we neither want to get in the way of Thanksgiving or of the latter part of December's holidays. And so I think that that's a good compromise right there. And so I know I'm going to make my calendar clear for that. Anybody else? Any other comments? No. Do we have any public comment on this?
Do not, President Palmer.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the meeting schedule as proposed.
President
Millibar.
Palmer, I apologize for interrupting. This isn't agendized as an action item. We were just looking for consensus. So
Okay,
thank you.
sorry about that. I got carried away. Okay, we have consensus. Let's go with it. Okay, good deal. Okay, that was then item G. Then we have staff reports coming up. That's item 7, General Counsel.
Thanks, President Palmer. So as always, my written reports in the packet. I think the one item I wanted to mention, which we haven't discussed this afternoon, is SB 537. So this is a bill that actually was passed out of the Senate and is now being considered by the Assembly. And it would provide some additional flexibility for multi-jurisdictional bodies like ours to allow board members to participate from your member agency offices, essentially, without making those offices public meeting locations. I think, we've successfully transitioned to the hybrid meeting format in a large part thanks to Claudia and her team. But this could be an additional benefit to us in the future if passed. And as always with these bills, we'll continue to monitor them and let you know as they develop. Thank you.
Zone 7, we'd be very grateful for that. Okay, then is that it for General Counsel?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, let's do we have treasurer's report?
I believe we do, if we can pull it up. So this is reporting April and May. So it is dated because of our meetings. We try to capture the past 2 months. And so in April and May, by May, we had a total of a little over $3.3 million, representing contribution from our water resource DCO office. And we also equally has disbursement about the same amount, about $3.3 million. And by the end of May, we had a little over $709,000 left in our bank. As you know, we get advances of $800,000 just to pay or prepay some of our bills. As we anticipate bills that come through, we review them and request for funding, and the funding comes and we pay the bills, and we're always left with about the same amount of money. And we have attached all the schedules so you can follow and see what we're doing. We have stopped tracking the budget, and we only will track the budget maybe the next time we do this, so we can reconcile to where Graham and his folks are tracking, because we're always a little bit behind. So we're not technically always tracking that now. And we only want to do that towards the end of the year when they're reconciled, because everything is always paid. They're ahead of us a little bit and we're always in arrears. So that's the report. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, you had a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Catano. I just want to add to Catano's comment. It's only that from the Treasury report, they're not tracking and reporting the budget because of the lag. We were always disconnected. We're also tracking and reporting budget. So what you see from us in the monthly report is an output of our budget tracking. But I appreciate Catano's comment there. We identified that there was a disconnect and we didn't want to create confusion within our monthly reporting.
Yeah,
Thank you
but
for
at the end of our fiscal year, when we do our financial, you'll see us reporting what that looks like.
So at the end of the fiscal year, they're going to jibe.
They reconcile.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, good deal.
Yes.
Good deal.
Yes.
Okay, any comments, Nope. Nope. Okay, then let us move on to DWR Environmental Managers Report.
Thank you, President Palmer. Just a quick update from me. We are continuing to work on the CEQA process. We are responding to comments now. So we are working through responding to all of the comments received, which was about 7,000 individual comments. So we are still on track to finish the final environmental impact report at the end of the year, and we are working hard to meet that deadline.
Good work. I think this is an area where AI might come in to play. It might be good. Okay, there. All right. Do we have any verbal reports? You may.
Maybe you'll find the pattern, but where are you in the numbers of responses?
Where am I? I just saw the number earlier today. So we have received for review about 3,200 responses out of those are just from the technical comments. So there are about 4,800 technical comments, about 3,200 have responses drafted. So yeah.
Great.
So you're getting there.
Getting there.
Yay. Okay, any other comments on this one? Nope. Okay, so then we're getting into verbal reports, if any? No verbal reports? None? Okay, then we have future agenda items. I have one. I would like to see an introduction, a formal introduction and a little background information for Ms. Vecchio. Vecchio or Vecchio? Vecchio. Okay, for Ms. Vecchio. I know we've done that occasionally, and I think that it'll be her turn to shine. Not yet. I mean, this is for the future. So this is a warning.
Prepared.
Okay.
Thank you,
great.
President Palmer. We talked about that internally and realized with what we had on the agenda that it could be one too many things, but we will absolutely ensure that we have her on the agenda for August, pending her availability.
Yes, you can't be absent that day. Okay. All right, then I believe we are adjourned.